Some very interesting dynamics are happening right now to the US housing market. This is based on my own analysis of Realtor.com's latest data just posted last week. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what's happening right now regarding home prices, housing inventory, new listings, and of course, price reductions as well. Stay tuned. At the very end of this video, I'll share a summary and also some thoughts regarding what has happened in our housing market over the past several weeks. So here's the article from Realtor.com. This is a weekly video I make for you guys, but this is actually the first time in about 3 weeks that I made this for you guys. So I'm catching up here. So this is just posted on September 19th, but I did not even read that. This is the article from them. Instead, I'll provide a link below for that. Instead, go to Realtor.com/research/data, click on weekly inventory, and then click on that link right there. It takes you more or less this information. So the most recent trends we have from them is for the week ended September 14th, which was my birthday, coincidentally. So asking prices decreased by 1.1% compared to 1 year ago. So asking prices have been down or flat for the past 16 consecutive weeks. We're no longer seeing strong home price growth like we saw in 2020 through early 2022 because inventory is up greatly compared to 1 year ago. Home prices are also flattening now as well due to home sale volume at relatively low levels as well. In my opinion, home prices and or rates would have to decrease further in order to see a significant rise in home sales, as many home buyers are either waiting on the sidelines for rates and prices to fall, or they're priced out of this housing market. All right, speaking of housing inventory, I have a lot to share regarding that because last week inventory increased by 33% from the same time frame in 2023. So now inventory has been higher compared to the previous year for the past 45 consecutive weeks. Pretty wild, right? We have more inventory compared to the previous 12-month period, going all the way back until November last year. So of course, this is good news. If you're a home buyer, you have more options to choose from, at least looking at trends on a national level. So you therefore have more negotiating power as well. In an environment in which inventory is basically tanking, it's falling off a cliff, you have multiple offers, and therefore you don't have a whole lot of bargaining power when you're placing offers on houses. But right now, inventory is up by 33% from last year. Therefore, home buyers have more options. Of course, they have more negotiating power as well. Real estate is local though, so we're seeing a glut of supply in areas like in Texas and Florida, but a lack of houses for sale in the Northeast, for example. So that's the good news. You have more houses to choose from, more inventory compared to last year. However, though, the bad news is that the year-over-year growth rate of housing inventory has basically been stagnant for the past 4 months, going all the way back until mid-May, when inventory has been increasing in the range of technically 33% to 38% ever since mid-May this year. Also, the 33% gain we saw last week was the smallest increase year over year since the week ended April 20th this year. Therefore, here's the key takeaway. Inventory growth has been stagnant, mainly from a lack of new supply hitting the market or a lack of new listings hitting the market. So for example, ever since early May this year, new listings have been up from a year ago by only single digits. So therefore, new supply hitting the market, new listings has been increasing by less than 10%. And that's been going on ever since early May this year. Prior to that, inventory was on the rise by more than 10% for the past 2 consecutive months back then. I'll share some news regarding a new supply here in a little bit. But I first want to go over my own analysis of AltusResearch.com's data because I want to share the growth rate of inventory this year compared to years past. So according to them, 1 year ago, we had just under 529,000 homes for sale. Now, for the week ended September 20th, which is actually just posted today, there was approximately 725,000 homes for sale. So therefore, we have approximately 196,000 more existing houses for sale right now compared to 1 year ago. That's an increase of 37%. Now, this is something I've been kind of talking about on the channel for since May probably. Inventory has been hovering around a 38% gain ever since May. Therefore, inventory has been rising the same rate as last year ever since May of this year. Therefore, the growth rate is basically flat. So kind of think of like a graph going like this, where inventory is up by 30% from last year, but it's basically going the same direction. We're not going like this, where inventory is skyrocketing like we saw in 2022. Maybe a better way to describe that is this right here. There's 227,000 more houses for sale right now compared to the start this year, January 1st. Therefore, inventory is up by 45% so far this year, looking at data from Altos Research. Compare that to the same time frame last year, inventory only increased by 12%. So in other words, inventory is growing much faster this year compared to last year, up by 45% so far this year, only up by 12% at the same time frame last year. Now here's a big difference though. It's also rising faster compared to pre-COVID levels. So when looking at data from Realtor.com, house inventory rose on average by 16% from January through August in 2017 through 2019. Compare that to a gain of 37% so far this year, same time frame, January through August this year. However, though, the increase this year is much less than the same time frame in 2022, where we saw a giant increase up by 93%. Compare that to a gain of only 37% so far this year. This is why I do not expect to see a sharp correction in home prices and home sales like we saw in 2022 when inventory and rates were absolutely exploding. However, though, I do expect we're going to see home price growth soften as the months progress due to four main reasons. Number one, the decrease of asking prices on a national level, as I share with you guys, more inventory, seasonality, and of course, number four, sluggish rate of home sales as well. Let's keep an eye on this because, of course, a lot could change. To summarize, inventory is rising more than twice as fast as pre-COVID levels, but significantly slower than 2022. We're also still down compared to pre-COVID. During the same time frame in 2019, we're down by 23%. All right, remember when I said that new listings were basically losing momentum as well? Take a look at this. Last week, new listings, which is a measure of people listing their house for sale, rose by only 6.6% compared to 12 months ago. So that marks the fourth consecutive week now in a row in which new supply in the market rose by less than 10%. Prior to that, the week ended August 17th and August 10th, new listings actually decreased from 1 year ago. So check this out. With the exception of a couple weeks in May this year, new listings have increased from the previous year by less than 10%. In contrast, they rose by over 10% from February through April this year. Therefore, the growth rate of new supply hitting the market, or new listings, has basically stalled out, causing inventory to also stall as well. Let's also have a look at how fast or how slow houses are selling right now. So last week, it took about 8 days longer to sell a house. This marks the 19th consecutive week in which houses took longer to sell compared to the previous year. This is much different compared to October last year through March this year, when houses on average were selling faster compared to the previous year. The impact, of course, regarding your housing market when homes take longer to sell, this, of course, increases housing inventory. Kind of think of it this way. If you have a bathtub, the water level is inventory levels. If you plug the hole of the bathtub, then there's not a lot of water goes down, and therefore inventory piles up or the water supply increases as more new listings hit the market. So because we're seeing houses taking longer to sell, that increases the water level and therefore causes inventory to remain at relatively high levels. But then again, a new supply in the market is not skyrocketing, which is also kind of putting its cap on inventory growth right now. Here's a new trend as well. Let's talk about the increase in the number of reduced price listings. That increased by 22.5% year over year. Therefore, the number of price drops has been higher compared to the previous year for the past 34 consecutive weeks. However, even though there's more price drops than last year, the gain of only 22.5% is actually the smallest gain since mid-February this year. Let me share that with you guys right here. So 22.5%. You have to go all the way back until right there. The week ended February 17th this year, where inventory, or I should say the number of price drops, only increased by 22%. And this is much different compared to the 61% gain we saw back in April 6th this year. And the gains in the range of 45 to about 55% that we saw from mid-April this year through basically July 13th this year. So the growth rate of price drops is basically been slowing down for the past several weeks now. So that was the number of price reductions. Let's have a look at the share of price drops. This is on Altus Research. For the week ended September 20th, according to them, the share of price drops is at 39%. So basically 4 out of every 10 homes for sale nationwide have reduced their asking prices. That's a share at 40% approximately. At 39%, this is higher than last year at 37%, but lower than the same time frame in 2022 when the share was at 41%. But at 39%, this is much higher compared to 2021, 2020, as well as the same time frame in 2019. The big difference this year compared to the correction we saw in 2022, though, is just kind of like, you can just basically eyeball this. Looking at the trough this year, mid-February, we're at 30%. Now it has increased by about 9 percentage points to 39%. The trough of 2022, though, was 17%. And by the time we hit this time 2 years ago, it increased to 41%. So the rate of increase in 2 years ago was sharp, and for a long period of time. This year, increasing at relatively high levels here, but not increasing at nearly the same rate as 2 years ago. All right, here's a summary for you guys. Number one, asking prices have been flat or down year over year for the past 16 consecutive weeks. This is from a significant rise of housing supply as well as elevated home prices, which of course is keeping home buyers, some of them, a lot of them, on the sidelines. Number two, housing inventory increased by 33% last week, but the growth rate has been stagnant for the past 4 months. Has been paid at around 33 to about 38% ever since May this year. Also, the gain of 33% is the smallest increase since April this year. In my opinion, this is from a slowdown in the number of new supply hitting the market. However, we're still down by about 23% compared to the same time frame in 2019. Of course, real estate is local, and as of August, based on data from Realtor.com, there's now 4 states that have more houses for sale right now compared to the same time frame in 2019. That's August. So in Texas, there's 8% more existing houses for sale. Idaho is up by 9%, Florida up by 6%, and Tennessee saw a gain of 5%. In addition, there's 4 more states that are not too far behind as well. Those are Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona. They have approximately 1 to 2% fewer houses for sale compared to 2019. Areas that have more inventory compared to pre-pandemic levels, of course, are areas in which home price growth is slowing down the most, or home prices are actually decreasing, like in parts of Texas, for example, especially Austin, Texas. Number 3, of course, we all know that approximately 80% of homeowners who do have a loan on their house have a rate below 5%. So of course, that's limiting the amount of new listings hitting the market. And of course, new listings have been rising by less than 10% ever since May this year, which is limiting housing inventory growth. I do not expect to see a huge surge in people listing their house for sale unless unemployment and layoffs absolutely surge as well. In other words, I don't expect to see forced selling unless people start losing their jobs. Number 4, the share of price reductions is no longer at a 5-year high during the same time frame because it actually dipped below 2022's levels. Also, in a span of 6 months in 2022, the share of price drops skyrocketed from 17% to 40%, more than doubling. Compare that to a small gain of around 9 percentage points so far this year. Number 5, last week, houses on average took about 8 days longer to sell. A friendly reminder though, this is a lagging indicator of our housing market because days in the market is based on a closed home sale. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about rates. So average 30-year fixed rates for people with great credit has been hovering around 6%, close to a 1.5-year low. Housing affordability has improved because rates have been coming down, but of course, it's still a huge issue due to high home prices. And of course, in some areas, high insurance rates as well. Areas like in Texas, Florida, for example, are experiencing huge increases of homeowners insurance rates. So of course, that makes it more challenging to buy houses. Also, housing affordability constraints can be seen by the record low levels of pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. That's according to data from NER, or the National Association of Realtors, for the month of July. And by the way, I'll have an update for you guys regarding figures for August. That'll be posted on Thursday this week. Number 2, this is actually a new development I've been seeing here. The most recent trends looking at mortgage purchase applications decreased by only 0.4% last week. This is actually for the week ended September 13th, but it was announced last Wednesday. That's according to the MBA. That's the smallest decrease since at least early of 2021. In other words, the smallest year-over-year decrease in over 3 years regarding application numbers to buy houses. So therefore, application numbers are no longer nosediving like they did in 2022. Also, NER reported that pending home sales, like I mentioned, for July, is at record low levels for data that goes back to 2021 or 2001. In contrast, new home construction sales, a measure of contracts being signed between builders and home buyers, actually increased by 6% year over year in July. So new home construction sales rose by 6%, contracts being signed, but the resale market fell to a new all-time record low, going all the way back until at least 2001. Not to say that home builders are not facing headwinds right now, because on national level, we basically have the most amount of new supply or new houses for sale since 2008. Number 3, looking forward for the nation as a whole, asking prices are down, inventory has been increasing, homes are sitting on the market longer, in other words, it's taking longer to sell houses, and price reductions are more common now than they were in 2019. We have been moving towards a buyer's market, but every housing market's different. Inventory in California and the Northeast part of the US is down greatly from 2019, whereas of course, inventory is piling up in Texas, Idaho, Florida, and Tennessee. Number 4, the most important one. I appreciate you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys are still watching today's video, here's a virtual high five. I appreciate you guys so much. Have an amazing day. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Thank you very much.